Bore da, Croeso, welcome to this international summer school brought to you by the Seren Network, Jesus College at the University of Oxford, Equal Education and the Welsh Government. Thank you so much for taking part. This is a really exciting venture. It's the largest access event for Welsh people outside of Wales, as far as I can discover. It's also the largest access activity that Oxford University is involved with, besides its enormous unique programme, so that's also really exciting. But it's not just an Oxford University gig, it is a truly international summer school. We've got students, teaching assistants from 9 different universities who are currently domiciled across 4 continents. So it is a genuinely international summer school, and they are all here to meet you. So you will get to meet them very soon and get to know them. It's worth just starting off with a big hello from all of us. So I'm Matt Williams. I'm the Access Fellow at Jesus College. Jesus College is sometimes known as the Welsh College at the University of Oxford because we were founded exactly 450 years ago. We've just had a very special birthday party by a Welshman called Hugh ap Rhys, who was the Chancellor of the Cathedral at St David's in Pembrokeshire. And he wanted the Queen of England, who at the time was Queen Elizabeth, to found a college at the University of Oxford to train the Welsh clergy. It was the first permanent institution of higher education for Welsh people. So it's technically the world's oldest Welsh university, even though it's right in the middle of England, which is a slightly old fact. These days we take students from all over the world, but we still have a very firm and fond connection with the country of Wales, and that's why we do a lot of access work in Wales. So that's a big hello from me. I'll be running quite a lot of lectures and other seminars during the next 2 weeks on various different topics, so hopefully I'll get to meet you all in slightly personal setting. We've also got some of the key organisers here, so if you I'm just going to meet you all again just quickly. But Lois and Thomas, if you're there, if you don't mind just unmuting yourself and saying a hello, I'm sure everyone would love to meet you, given how much work you've done to get us to this stage. Lois, I know you're here at least, so please.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Lois. I just finished a master's course in French literature in Trinity College this year, but before that I spent 4 years as a student at Jesus at the Welsh College, and yeah, I'll be teaching on the literature and languages stream, but also like coordinating different bits of the summer school. So if you've got any questions, particularly if you're having trouble with breakout rooms and Teams, get in touch with me, message me on Teams. And yeah, Thomas, I'm not sure if Thomas, who's also coordinating things with me, is here because he's currently just moved house and is having, well, the Wi-Fi set up hopefully this lunchtime. So I'm not sure he's going to be able to make it, but on behalf of him, if he's not here, hello from both of us.
Lovely, thanks Lois. If you are lurking there somewhere, Thomas, do please unmute yourself, but if not, as Lois said, he would no doubt very warmly welcome you all. I have to say an enormous thank you to Lois and Thomas for putting together the amazing handbook that you've hopefully all received, and it's available on Teams if you haven't received it otherwise, and the timetable that has been put together. Also thanks to the teaching assistants, as I mentioned, of whom we have representatives from 9 different universities. In fact, I'll show you a little montage of all of their lovely institutions now, starting with the University of Birmingham. These teaching assistants have put together a truly remarkable package of lectures and seminars across 8 different capstone projects. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at the timetable. There are 1 or 2 gaps where we're just trying to work out some of the logistics, but what is currently there is, I think, a fantastic offering, especially given that it's all completely free for you. So I hope you take full advantage of it. I'll explain what our objectives are in a minute. That was Cambridge, by the way. So we've done Birmingham, Cambridge, another wonderful Russell Group university. Here's the University of Cardiff. We've got some students coming from here as well. Just do the rest of the tour, this sort of whizzy, slightly gimmicky perhaps Google Earth tour. The University of Manchester, another Russell Group university in the northwest of England. Okay. And then I think we have to hop over the pond to Boston, Massachusetts for Northeastern University. We've got a student who will be joining us from there for some of the sessions, and also a former tutor of that university will be helping out, a man called Dr. Matt Jones, who's currently now a faculty member at the University of Florida. So we've got another university to add to our tally. So hopping back to the UK, to my institution, the University of Oxford, and you can just about pick out Jesus College at the bottom right of the screen now, spinning around. Okay. And then next up on the tour is Queen's University Belfast. Got Ellie is a student there, and she's done some amazing content on the intelligence services, which sounds really cool and interesting. So there it is, Queen's Belfast, another Russell Group university. And now back across to the US, this time to the state of Maryland and St. John's College in Annapolis. Annapolis is the site of the famous US Naval Academy. Fun fact about the US Navy, it's the world's second largest air force, with the largest air force in the world being the US Air Force. Okay, and now we are going all the way to Southeast Asia and to Singapore and Yale NUS, which is the collaboration between Yale University and the National University of Singapore. And we have several students from there as well. Okay, so as you can see, it is a truly international affair. The 4 continents is because I believe one of the students is currently in Australia, so that's where the 4th continent comes in, just in case you're wondering. So huge thanks to Lois and Thomas, huge thanks to the teaching assistants, huge thanks also to my colleague Shelley at Jesus College, who's currently working on another activity, so she's not with us this morning, but she's put up with me for a very long time, so for that alone I'm extremely grateful. Also, massive thanks to the team at Equal Education. Liam and Rebecca have been amazing in their preparations for this summer school. And of course, the team at the Welsh Government who provided so much support. There's a huge number of people involved there, but particular thanks must go to Rian, Ali, Jude, Julie for all of their help and support. All right, so let's get into some of the details of what's coming up. So effectively, what we are trying to recreate is life as a university student. So what these 2 weeks will very closely mimic is what it's like to study as a university student at a top rate competitive university such as those 9 that you've just seen images of now. Okay, so this would be somewhat different to life as an A-level student for some conspicuous reasons. First of all, the curriculum is much looser. There will be lectures and seminars in these next 2 weeks that will be broadly relevant to the project that we'd like you to complete, but they're not going to be directly instrumentally useful, because that's exactly what happens at universities. You don't get lectures at universities on how to write this essay you've got coming up next week. You get lectures on all sorts of things with the idea of trying to broaden your mind and expand your skill set so that that essay becomes easier, but not because someone spoon-fed you the answers. Now, I'm not saying that A-levels are exactly spoon-feeding, but there is a lot more directive teaching that goes on at A-levels and a little bit less sort of exploratory learning. When I started my doctorate at Oxford, my supervisor said, "Welcome back to the sandbox. It's been a while, but you're back here." What he meant by that is that when you start at the highest levels of education, you actually, in sort of interesting ways, in sort of pedagogic ways, in terms of how you learn and how you study, you revert back to what you will have done at reception when you were a very young child. Hence, doing a doctorate at Oxford is like being a child in reception, because it's so open, the world just unfolds in front of you. You're in this massive sandbox and you're left to explore it on your own terms without someone saying, "Oh, do this first, then do that, then you do the other." So the point being is that you should dip into whatever you like. You should have some fun, go and explore some sessions. So check out the timetable. You will have been assigned, or you will have assigned yourselves to one of the 8 capstone projects, but you're absolutely welcome to dip into some of the other sessions, especially the lectures. So they are free to all of you. And we will be recording as much of the content as we can so that you can take advantage of it at any time. Another reality of university life is that the timetabling is up to you as well. And that, again, is something that we are intending to recreate in this summer school. In other words, we're not being prescriptive. We're not going to say you must be here at 9 o'clock, and if you're not here, then you're kicked off. And you don't even need to complete the project. Everything about the next 2 weeks is entirely driven by you and how much you are able and willing to engage with. So if you have other commitments, if you've got summer jobs that you're pursuing, if you've got some holiday plans, it's absolutely fine. Don't feel that you're beholden to attend every session. But what we want to do is to give you the opportunity to attend as much as you like and to catch up when possible. Again, this is exactly how universities work. They treat you as the adults you are and allow you to work out how to manage your time and how to get the most out of the opportunities. Clearly, we would love it if you can attend as much of the content as possible, because we think you'll get the most out of it. We think it'll be the way to develop your skills, so that given that you've got to be writing personal statements within the next few months, next few weeks really, those personal statements will be much sharper as a result of all of these amazing super curricular activities that we are providing for you. So if you put a lot of energy into the next 2 weeks, you'll get a lot out of it. And there are all sorts of specific elements that are coming up that are both academic and non-academic that will broaden your mind and improve your skills, we think, including some really exciting guest speakers. We've got someone from the Open University coming up to show you all of the sort of free, amazing online super curricular content you can find. I'm often asked, do you have any suggested readings for X, Y, and Z so that I can improve my personal statement? Well, this lady is going to have more than that, right? There's going to be so much super curricular reading available, it'll be coming out of your ears. So do attend that if you're looking for some interesting stuff to really flesh out a good personal statement. Also on Wednesday evening, we've got an Emmy award-winning film producer who attended a comprehensive school in Aberystwyth and is now a huge deal over in the US in the entertainment industry. And so he will be sharing his story about developing a career. So whether you're or not you're interested in media or interested in business, anything really about what can happen after university, he'd be a great person to talk to. He went to this comprehensive in Aberystwyth, then came to Oxford, and is now this sort of bigwig over in the US. He's called Peter Morgan. Not necessarily that well known because as producers are often a little bit sort of behind the scenes, but his story is amazing, and it'd be great if as many of you as possible can turn up. That's Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So that's the idea, is to just try and make life as close as possible like university will be for you come the next academic year, or if you take a gap year, the one after that. There's a little bit of housekeeping that we ought to get through because it's very important. So first of all, with regards to security, and that's what the little sort of padlock with the eye in it is supposed to symbolize. Obviously, we need to make sure that your safety is secure at all times. So in all of the sessions where you might be contributing, there'll be somebody who has a disclosure and barring service check, or a DBS check, which you may have heard of. And that's just to ensure that that person has no prior criminal records and that they are a safe person to work with young people such as yourselves. So that's one layer of security. We will also keep a log of anything that you feel we ought to know about. So if there's any sort of anything that you think is inappropriate, either from the tutors or from one of the other students, please let us know, and in confidence we'll take a record of it and take action if necessary. We have a safeguarding agreement, which you're welcome to have a look at if you like. And it is our number one priority. We don't want anyone to feel unsafe, because that will, of course, render the whole school a deeply unpleasant experience. So it is going to be safe and secure. But if anything does go wrong as far as you're concerned, and even if you're not sure it might be borderline, just get in touch and let us know. And I'll give you the contact details in a minute. This plan with the sort of arrows in the middle is supposed to designate contingencies. What do we do if we have a critical failure of Microsoft Teams, which is not at all implausible? Well, in the first instance, we will segue to email, and probably using YouTube Live. We will communicate with you via email if Teams fails, but for the most part, we will be communicating to you via Teams. So if you can make sure that you check Teams fairly regularly for any updates. For example, the handbook, the timetable will be updated. So if you want to know what sessions are coming up for you, do please check Teams. But if there's some sort of critical failure, we'll shift to email. If that fails, and we really will be having a bad couple of weeks if email and Teams go down, but it's possible. We will then shift to social media. So the Seren Network and Jesus College Oxford have all of the standard sort of Twitter, Instagram, etc. accounts. So we'll send messages through those. We'll also try and send messages to your hub coordinators for each of the Seren hubs to try and send you messages. And I don't know what happens if that fails. I guess we resort to letters. We'll send you a card saying, sorry, it's all failed, but we'll go back to sort of correspondence schooling like they used to do in the 1950s. This symbol in the top right is denoting the fact that this summer school has a really interesting new component that we haven't done in the past, which is that we will give you the opportunity to present your own content, to develop and present something for yourself. And this will be for the benefit of younger Seren learners. So as you may be aware, you're in Seren Academy, which is for the older students, but Seren Network has expanded to much younger students now, starting at year 8. And they are thirsty for good content, for great sort of mind-expanding, interesting ideas and simplified, complex phenomena. And that's where you can come in. What we will do is there'll be a session tomorrow. It's in the timetable. I'll be leading it, and I'll explain how you can get involved with this. It's entirely optional, but if you do get involved, you'll get an enhanced certificate and you'll be in the running to win quite a decent chunk of money in the vouchers of your choice. The reasons that you might want to do this are, well, let's say you want to get into education. It's a very good idea if you can produce a very short but simplified video, for example, or a poster on a particular concept. If you are doing Duke of Edinburgh, it could stand instead of one of your volunteering activities. And just generally speaking, when you have to explain a complex phenomenon, it makes it easier for you to understand. So I'm currently writing a book that I've been working on for years, and working on a lecture that I'm doing tomorrow on whether or not James Bond would in fact in real life have a license to kill has actually made writing that book easier for me. Okay, so teaching helps you to learn as well. So there are all sorts of amazing benefits to getting involved with this program. As I say, it's in the timetable for tomorrow, so do please check it out. And let me just confirm the timing of that. It is at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Okay, so do attend that. We'll be here in the general channel if you're interested. And this symbol at the bottom is a virtual reality viewer, because another thing that we're doing this year is we're providing some content in 360 degrees. There is already a video for this morning, which will be for directly after this session that you can watch in 360 degrees. We will be sending you out these, oh no, I've got it the wrong way around, virtual reality goggles in the post. And hoodies, so you should all get a hoodie and a VR headset. We had some difficulties procuring the hoodies, which is why they're a little bit delayed. We had hoped to have them in advance of the summer school, but that sadly didn't happen. But you should get them either this week or early next week. In the meantime, you can still watch all of the 360-degree footage. It's best watched on a mobile phone if you have one, because then you can move the phone around and just look around as I walk through Oxford and get a sense of the place. Okay, so that should be quite cool and hopefully engaging. All right, so those are some of the housekeeping points. As said, if you have anything you would like to raise, if you have any questions, any requests, if you have any safeguarding concerns, do feel free to contact me by email. If you want to contact someone about my behavior, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, then you should have the email addresses and contact details of Shelley, my colleague, of Lois, and of Thomas, because they've all been contacting you a lot recently. So do get in touch if you have any questions or concerns. It's not a problem at all. Okay, what's next up? So what's your target? What are you actually sort of here for? What's the goal? So we are trying to recreate university life. So how can you make the best of that? What's the best way of doing that? Well, what we're not going to try and do is make you all know-it-alls, because nobody knows anything for sure. And that's not what universities do. We don't teach people stuff that they can then know, because that's kind of pointless, because that stuff that they then know will become obsolete whenever new stuff that undermines the old stuff gets discovered. As Socrates put it, the only thing I know with any certainty is that I don't know anything at all. And the more you learn, the less you know is another adage which I fully subscribe to. In other words, we're not in the business of teaching people stuff. We're in the business of teaching people skills, giving them the capacity to learn their own stuff, to work out their own solutions to the mysteries of the universe. Because there are no completely 100% rock solid guaranteed truths about the universe that we know. And so pretty much everything, therefore, is theoretical and it has a degree of doubt to it. And that's okay. But what you need to be able to do is to have the capacity to come up with those theories and to critically assess any existing theories. So we are not teaching you in these next 2 weeks to be know-it-alls, but to be think-it-alls. And we're going to do that through an engaging series of sessions so that you develop your thinking skills, because that will make you a more competitive applicant to universities. So this is intended to help you have the skills and the confidence to apply to whichever university you like. This is not a 2-week-long advert for the University of Oxford. Obviously not, because we've got loads of other universities involved. But at any rate, that would be fairly silly of us to try, because ultimately we want you to make the best informed and most confidently empowered decisions that suit you as an individual, not that suit us as a university. Obviously, we'd be thrilled if you thought about applying to us, but we're not quite as mercenary as that, I promise. I promise. No, it's true. Okay, so that's what your target is to learn how to think. Now, you, of course, already have amazing thinking skills, but you can improve any skills, right? You know, even the world's best chefs can become better chefs. The world's best ballroom dancers can get better at ballroom dancing. And you are already pretty world-class in your thinking skills, but you can get better. And that's the aim that you should aspire to over the next 2 weeks. So a good thing to start with is to be quite self-aware, to know thyself, to know about your thinking skills as they currently stand, perhaps to think about any gaps or any things that you could improve, and try and work out what sessions or what things could improve those potential gaps in your thinking. As mentioned, one of the key themes is that we are aiming to encourage you to think, not to come up with answers necessarily. So this person on the left is quizzical and thinking, and this chart on the right suggests that there's correct answers to everything. We are aiming for this person who's quizzical and asking lots of questions. Basically, the archetype of a very competitive university applicant is, as I said earlier, someone who's akin to a toddler, a child who's just starting out in the world, who's exploratory, who's thoughtful, who's perceptive, who's asking lots of questions. Because someone who knows answers to lots of questions is demonstrating knowledge, but as I've mentioned already, knowledge is flawed because we don't have any absolute certain knowledge in the first place. And secondly, actually recalling facts is not a particularly impressive skill. It's not that difficult, to be honest. Whereas coming up with solutions to puzzles, that is an impressive skill. For example, Professor Dame Sarah Gilbert, the lady at Oxford University who developed the AstraZeneca vaccine, if she just went at that problem with a stock of facts, she wouldn't have been able to develop a new vaccine because it was a novel coronavirus. So old facts are not going to help you with novel problems, right? So you need to develop the thinking skills of being quizzical, coming up with good questions, but not necessarily always aspiring to having the right answers. Okay, and hence try and unlock your inner toddler, that child that used to ask all of those incredibly perceptive questions, such as why is the sky blue, and why is gold yellow, and why do I have nightmares, and does my phone get heavier when I download new apps onto it, or anything like that. You know, those are good sort of solid toddler questions, and they will help you develop your thinking skills, and they will help with your motivation, because all of a sudden learning becomes a whole lot more fun if you start just posing those bonkers, open but deeply fascinating questions. In fact, next week I will be doing a session on why gold is yellow, and I had no idea the answer to that until a few weeks ago. The answer, like I know the answers, but it was something that I just thought was incredibly interesting. You know, if you line up loads of different metals in front of you, most of them, with the exception of like copper and gold, are going to be silvery in color. But why? My inner toddler, my sort of insane, inane child, like mine, decided that that was an interesting thing to pose. And that's what we're going to encourage in you, is to be quizzical, to be perceptive. So given that this is an introductory session, a toddler question that we might have for you is, well, how would you say hello to us? I mean, did did you know, for example, that the word hello was somewhat foisted on popular culture by Thomas Edison, who, when he first used Alexander Graham Bell's telephone, he said hello, and somewhat sealed in history its fate. Hello was quite an unusual way of greeting someone prior to the invention of the telephone. And rumor has it, although this could be entirely apocryphal, that Edison was toying up using hello or ahoy. So we very nearly sort of established ahoy as the most common way of greeting someone in the English language, which I think we've massively missed a trick there. That would have been so awesome. But instead we say hello. But how would you say hello? Have you ever sort of thought about that? Now, what I'm encouraging you to do here is what's called metacognition, which is a very jazzy way of saying thinking about thinking. Cognition is thinking. Meta is something where you sort of do that thing to itself. So metacognition is the thinking about your thinking. And if you ask questions along the lines of, well, why do we say hello? That is an example of very deep thinking. And it's exactly the sort of thing that toddlers are ace at. I know because I've got one of my own, and he asks me these just mind-stretching questions all the time, which genuinely cause me to lose sleep. The other day, he asked me why Tom and Jerry are a cat and a mouse. And I swear I spent an hour and a half trying to work that out. Because it's not that straightforward, right? Why do we have this sort of cultural notion that cats and mice are always fighting with each other? Why wasn't it, I don't know, a cat and a vole? Or who knows? I went through all of the possible permutations, but I just found it such an awesome question. And that's because toddlers are awesome. And another thing that toddlers are very good at is using different types of thinking process. Now, you have what is sort of basically described as System 1 and System 2 thinking skills. System 1 thinking is automatic thinking. That is the consequence of an accretion of knowledge and experience. And if you have a new puzzle, you'll basically apply the old rubric to solve that new puzzle. Okay, so an example of this might be, if any of you have learned to drive, you will have spent a really long time trying to work out how to coordinate your limbs, and it would have been quite a struggle and quite tiring. That's you using System 2. That's you very deliberately and carefully working out how to operate your limbs and your mind and all the rest of it in order to solve the puzzle of driving safely. But the more you do it and the more experience you gain, the more it shifts to System 1, and it just becomes like muscle memory. Well, the issue is that a lot of academic skills do the same thing. Through years and years of practice and experience, you get so good at, say, solving mathematical puzzles or writing essays, that it all just goes from a big struggle, such that a toddler would go through, to oh, it's a piece of cake, let's just bash it out, automatic. Actually, part of the issue is that you should slow everything down a bit. Try not to just allow System 1 to dominate. System 1 is fine, but System 2 can help you think deeper. Okay, it's important to think through some of the seemingly bizarre questions that we will come up with over the next few weeks, because it will expand your thinking skills and expand your mind. So not only ask, how you would say hello, but why would you even say hello in the first place? Why do we say hello? Why do we greet each other with our names? Isn't there some more useful data that we could impart on first meeting another human being? I mean, my inner toddler's asking, well, why am I saying hello and then giving you my name? Why wouldn't I tell you my blood type and the location of the nearest hospital? Wouldn't that be more useful data in terms of sort of my basic desire to stay alive? So why do I fritter away milliseconds of my life telling you this pointless data about what my parents put on a birth certificate? Anyway, you might think I've gone completely around the bend crazy, and that wouldn't be a completely mislaid conclusion. But the point is just to think about these things, to be inquisitive, to be inquiring, because it will help you in all sorts of contexts. It will help you in interviews for sure, because you won't miss details all of a sudden. If you go into an interview and you allow System 1 thinking to dominate, you won't listen to the question properly. You'll answer the question you thought you'd been asked but actually hadn't, and you'll just trot out an automatic answer that will demonstrate no depth of thinking. And you won't get in. You won't get into medical school. You won't get into universities that use interviewing. You have to engage System 2. We can measure through brainwaves whether or not you're using System 1 or System 2. When you're in System 1, your brain emits what are called alpha waves. Whereas if you're in System 2 and you're concentrating, your brain emits beta waves. This is so predictable now that people have developed little sort of cranial caps that can sit on your head and can measure the different types of waves, and you can use it to control remote control cars or mini helicopters, wherein if you're concentrating, the helicopter can rise, and if you're not concentrating, it'll fall down. Okay, so the way to remember it is that beta is better. Beta waves mean you're concentrating, and it's going to mean you'll do better. Okay, because we need to develop that system 2 thinking. It will lead to greater success. Okay, so please think about your thinking. Reflect even now about what you're thinking about. Your brain is probably thinking all sorts of things, such as, I'm really tired, I want another cup of coffee, what is this lunatic talking about? Whatever, right? There will be lots of things going through your mind, and that's completely fine, but just reflect on it. Be self-aware, be self-critical. And one of the most useful pieces of advice when it comes to thinking is slow down. Don't allow system 1 thinking to dominate. There's this old misconception about students at the world's best universities that they can just bash out a response to a question within milliseconds, like they're on University Challenge. But remember, University Challenge is a test of knowledge. But what we're looking for in admissions processes at universities is tests of thinking, not knowledge. And if you slow that process down, you'll do it better because you'll be engaging beta waves and you'll be engaging system 2 thought. Okay, so please slow down your thinking skills because they'll probably get better. So here's another set of toddler questions, which is, how did you get here? And how did you get here now? Right, so you can think about the steps that you took to work hard through school, to get onto the Seren program, to be identified by your teachers as the brightest people in Wales, which will be a logical part of the story. But the inner child in you would ask questions like, well, what even is here and now? How can we know where we are? I mean, for example, at the moment, you are spinning as a result of the Earth's rotation at about 650 miles an hour. So here is very far from constant. And you can go deeper down that rabbit hole because, of course, the Earth is also rotating around the sun. And that movement is propelling you at about 67,000 miles per hour. And even further than that, our solar system is barreling its way towards the constellation of Leo at an eye-watering 872,000 miles an hour. So there is no here as far as you're concerned. In a universal context, there is no here. There is only there because you're constantly moving. So I know that's a sort of really obtuse bit of wordplay, but it's just an example of if you stop and ask lots of questions, even really foundational questions such as where am I and what is here, you can come up with some thoughtful and perceptive ideas. And what about now? Can you perceive now? Well, physics says no, of course you can't, because if light that you are perceiving me via is traveling to your eyes, it's not instantaneous. It travels very, very fast, of course, but it's certainly not instantaneous, and sound is even slower. And that begs the question, well, how is it that, given that light travels at one speed and sound at another, do you stitch together image and audio in your brain? Because you should see the image and the audio as almost completely knitted together. So how does that work? Well, it works because your brain does the stitching together. It's like incredibly sophisticated video editing software, wherein there is a visual input and an audio input which are imperfectly aligned, and the brain aligns it for you, which is just insane. So for example, if you clap your hands in front of your face, the sight of the hand clap and the sound of the hand clap are not going to reach your brain simultaneously, but they will appear to your mind's eye to be simultaneous because your brain lives ever so slightly in the past. You have no possible conception of now. You can't perceive it. So there is no here and there is no now. That's a good way to sort of melt everyone's brains on a Monday morning. But it's only through asking those sorts of silly toddler questions that you can get to something like that. And I think they're fun, right? One of the things that students at the world's top universities tend to have in common is that they just enjoy this sort of stuff, because it's interesting and it's empowering. It gives you all sorts of skills that you can use to solve problems anywhere in your life, from business to law to charitable work to whatever you want to do with your life. And you should have a think about the future and ask some toddler questions about that future as well, such as, what are my motivations and where do motivations come from? what is the sort of neurophysiology of being motivated? Or is it sociology? Am I motivated by the thoughts of the people around me and the society I keep? Quite possible. You need to think about, well, if you want to get somewhere, if you've got a particular target in life, maybe a particular career, or you want to attend a certain university, you're probably going to have to engage in quite a lot of hard work. But have a good old think about what that means as well. Remember what I've been saying is that actually some of the most successful students are the ones that don't see it as work at all. They see it as fun. So think very carefully about how you can reconceptualize what it is that you're doing. If you think of everything that we're doing in the next 2 weeks and everything that you do at school as work, the problem with that is that you have the temptation of assuming that you're doing it for somebody else's benefit. You're doing it to keep teachers off your back. You're doing it to keep your parents happy, or what have you. Whereas if you think of it in a different way as study or growth or empowerment, whatever word you want to use, it doesn't really matter. But the same activity all of a sudden gets transmogrified into a completely self-regarding act. So it will be hard in the sense that you will have to engage a lot of your energy and your time, but the result will be that you will be incredibly powerful. You'll be the sort of person that can resolve problems in all sorts of different contexts. And that's super exciting. It's not work because you're not doing it for someone else. You're doing it for yourself. So have a good old think about what it is you're doing and why you're doing it, and try and come up with a narrative, a convincing narrative in your mind that you're doing it for yourself, because frankly, you are. And that's very much the most efficient way of living, because if you constantly work towards someone else's desire, it's going to it'll cause resentment, it'll cause all sorts of potential mental health problems. But if you're doing it because you want to do it, that's the way to success. Okay. And you also need to have a bit of an audit about how you are living in order to develop your thinking skills. Now, the sort of thinking skills we're talking about, using system 2, pumping out those beta waves, it's really tiring. Concentrating is a tiring business. The brain utilizes somewhere in the order of 20% of your daily calorie intake, and that's the sort of at a minimum, but it can go much higher than that. Now, given that your brain is just 3% of your body mass, that means it is the most greedy organ by mass to sort of energy consumption ratio of any of the organs. And you're going to be doing a lot of work with it. So you need to make sure you look after your brain. You need to make sure that it's getting a sufficient amount of vitamin-rich food, because the brain and other organs cannot synthesize vitamins. You have to take them in via your food. So you have to make sure that you look after your brain. If you have a poor diet, you will have poor thinking skills, and you will have all sorts of other symptoms of vitamin deficiency. And so it's a good idea to make sure that you think about what you're eating. You also need to be very well hydrated if you want to think properly. If you're dehydrated, your blood is thick, and thick blood is poor at servicing all of your organs, not least of which, of course, is your brain, especially in hot weather such as we're having at the moment. And you need to think about your sleep. You must get good and regular sleep if you want your brain to work at its optimum. The way my mum used to put it, she's a doctor, is that your body and your brain is a bit like a Formula One car. It's an incredible piece of kit, capable of astounding feats. But if you put rubbish fuel into it, it will fail, and it will fail hard. You can't just go to a Formula One car and put in, I don't know, diesel into it, because it's going to fail. And it's going to explode on the track, or something horrifying will happen to that Formula One car. Now, you're not going to explode. I mean, I wouldn't advise you put diesel in your own body, but still, the point being is that what you put in terms of fuel and how you treat this piece of kit that you've been gifted of an amazing brain is really, really important. Okay, to put it into sort of quantitative terms, your brain has the memory storage capacity of 2,500 petabytes. Now that's roughly equivalent of 2.5 petabytes, which is equivalent to 2,500 terabytes, and therefore about the same as 2,500 top-end laptop computers. So your brain is an insane piece of kit, absolutely incredible. You've got to look after it. Okay, otherwise it will fail, and it will fail you when you need it. Okay, and you need it over the next few months. So please, for goodness sake, look after yourself. Okay, and have a think about that. And finally, just be kind to your inner toddler. Let them out once in a while to rampage and ask all sorts of questions. Don't worry about being thought of as foolish, because asking questions is never foolish, and no one that you will talk to over the next 2 weeks will think any less of you if you ask questions that are silly. So for goodness sake, just be kind to your inner toddler. Be hungry as well, because there's so much out there that we are providing. So I'm just starting a collaboration with SpringPod, for example, who provide free resources. So that will be coming shortly in October. So if you want to have a degree taster, you can do that. We are also going to be uploading as many of the videos as possible from this summer school onto the Jesus College Oxford YouTube channel, wherein we already have lots of lectures and admissions test sessions and mock interviews and all sorts of other useful stuff. So do go and check it out, and we'll be uploading all of the videos there as soon as they become available. Okay. And finally, thank you so much for getting involved. As I mentioned earlier, this is a huge venture. It's the biggest thing I've ever done. And so I have to admit to being slightly nervous, but I'm very grateful to you all for being guinea pigs in this. I hope it's going to be a success. I'm sure with your help that it will be, and with the help of all of the amazing people that have helped us get this far, it will be. But yeah, seriously, thank you so much. Right, I will stop the recording there, and I will now gladly answer any questions you have. The next sessions will be starting at 10 o'clock, so do check the timetable to work out what you might be attending. I'm giving a lecture on how a single word in law forced 50,000 people to remain homeless. I'll be a little bit late to that because I need to help someone else set up another session, so don't worry if I am a bit late. That should be expected. Anyway, Lois has a hand up. Yes, please, Lois.
Yeah, I just wanted, because I think there was a bit of confusion with this session. There was about 2 other meetings going on at the same time. So for all the sessions, if participants, you can wait for one of the teaching assistants to start the calls, just in case we've got like loads of calls going on at the same time and people miss out. So yeah, just wait for the TAs to begin the sessions, and then you can join those after that.
Great, thanks for that, Lois. Okay, does anyone else have any other questions? We won't be recording this part, so if you want to raise a hand, that's fine, or if you just want to tap it in the chat, that's also not a problem. But if not, then you're welcome to head off, and I'll see you at the next session at 10. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the week, and do please keep in touch with us. Oh, I should have mentioned something else that's super exciting that I failed to flag up just now, is that next Thursday, as in a week this Thursday, you will be given the opportunity to present the findings from your capstone work to experts in your field, which is an amazing opportunity to talk to people that are in the various industries that you may hope to work in one day, to get some feedback on your work. They are all lovely people. They're not going to rip you apart. They are very interested to see what sort of ideas you come up with. So again, that's a good incentive to try and make the most out of this opportunity to put some effort into the work, because you'll get so much more out of it. And this is 100% the sort of stuff you should be putting in personal statements. If you write a really strong piece of work, as an admissions tutor for Oxford University, if I saw that someone had attended a summer school, had written a piece of work and had some thoughts on a particular supercurricular problem, perfect. All of a sudden that personal statement is in fact personal. So this is almost ludicrously tailored to improve your UCAS applications. So do please make the most of it. Another thing to note is that next Friday, as in a week Friday, sorry, Saren, Oxford isn't dangerous, I promise. Next Friday, we'll be having tutorials, which is very small group discussions of your ideas. And that is a process that's a teaching style that we use at Oxford and Cambridge and other universities. That it's more systematically used at Oxford and Cambridge, insofar as you have about 2 a week for the whole of your degree. And it's a really exciting opportunity to talk with people in small groups about your thinking skills. And so you can allow your inner toddler to run around in that session with abandon. All right, so it doesn't look like we've got any other questions, which is fine. So I will wish you a happy Monday and see some of you very shortly for the next session. But thank you very much for showing up, and look forward to seeing more of you as the weeks unfold. Thanks again. Bye, everyone.